Jai Shri Ram. There are several shlokas in the Bhagavad Gita which some readers and thinkers are likely to find very difficult to reconcile. And in this talk, I am trying to present before you a conversation which I had with a very elderly person and who asked some questions which have already occurred to me earlier. And I arrived at the conclusion that these contradictions, at least some of them, not all, are irreconcilable. And perhaps the human mind will never be able to reconcile them. Now, unless you give me a patient hearing, you will probably fault straight away with whatever I am trying to tell you. Okay. Now, please bear with me because we are all Shruti Rasikas. Remember, you are listening to me simply because you love listening to such stuff. Spiritual discussions, Shastrarth. We are Bharatas. Bharata. Bharata means one who loves knowledge, one who is immersed in knowledge, one who delights in acquiring and discussing knowledge. So that is why our land is called Bharata. Bha means knowledge, Rata means one who delights in it. Now, you see 9.4 Maya tatam idam sarvam jagad avyakta murtina matsthani sarvabhutani nachaham tesh vyavasthitaha. That is 9.4. And what is 9.5? So in 9.4, Krishna is saying, by me, in my unmanifested form, this entire universe is pervaded. All beings are in me, but I am not in them. But some people are not accepting this translation. So, 9.4, by me in my unmanifested form, the entire universe is pervaded. All beings are in me, but I am not in them. Now, this is a translation into English. But there is a problem here. Different commentators have used different choice of words. All living beings dwell in me, but I do not dwell in them, is one kind of explanation. The whole of this universe is permeated by me as unmanifest divinity, and all beings rest on the idea within me. Rest on the idea within me. Therefore, really speaking, I am not present in them. There is Jayadayal Goyandka ji, Swami Mukundananda, Bhagavad Gita, the Song of God. So if you see, there are some many viewpoints here. Let us now examine all of them. Let us see if we can. My contention is they are irreconcilable. We should give up this obsession to know everything because we cannot know everything. That's why the Veda says Yato Vacho Nivartante Aprapya Manasa Saha. And there are some things which will always remain unknown to us. Those concepts are there. The known knowns, the known unknowns, the unknown knowns, and the unknown unknowns. All these things are there. There are so many unknown unknowns. That's why Krishna also says in 1042, Adhava bahunaitena kimnyatena tavarjuna Vishtabhyahamidam Krishnam ekanshena sthito jagat. What will you do? And quantum mechanics says there are at least 11 dimensions. Classical physics says there are 4 dimensions and 4 states of matter. Quantum mechanics says there is no state of matter, everything is in a state of flux. Quantum mechanics or quantum physics always tells you that there are parallel universes and this is a holographic universe. The Schrodinger's cat is there. When you look at the moon, it is there, but when you look away, it is not there. Stephen Hawking also said the past like the future is uncertain. So and the famous conversation between Albert Einstein, Bohr and Stephen Hawking. Once Einstein said God doesn't play dice. Bohr, who was sitting beside him, Niels Bohr, responded, who are you to tell God what to do? After these two gentlemen passed away, several years later, Stephen Hawking is believed to have said, God not only plays dice, he throws them where you cannot find them. So we have Advaita, Vishishtadvaita, Dvaita, but the truth is we have no idea, because Krishna has not endorsed any one of them. So for our own satisfaction, for our own intellectual satisfaction, and perhaps massaging our own intellectual egos, our egos, because we get a satisfaction that yes, we have found out and we know. In order to satisfy this petty ego, we might develop some convictions about certain things. I refuse to form any conviction. I am very clear that I don't know, and perhaps I will never know, and perhaps the human mind is incapable of ever knowing everything. We may know some things. You are entitled to know some things only. That is why yato vacho nivartante. Now, in this connection, let us see what Swami Mukundananda is saying. He gives some very interesting explanations. See, the Vedic philosophy does not accept the concept of God creating the world and then peeping into it from the seventh heaven, like in the Abrahamic cults, to check whether his world is running as expected. The Vedic philosophy propounds that God is all pervading. Eko deva sarva bhuteshu gudha sarva vyapi. Shvetashvatara Upanishad. So, Eko deva sarva bhuteshu gudha sarva vyapi. There is one God who is seated in everyone's heart. He is also everywhere in the world. Sarva bhuteshu gudaha, in the heart. He is also everywhere in the world. Now that's a simple statement, easy to understand. That means God is both transcendent and immanent. Okay, very simple. He is within the subatomic particle and he is beyond everything, and he is faster than the fastest, slower than the slowest, and actually he is indefinable. That is why Yajnavalkya, when he was asked by his students to define God, he said, Na iti, na iti, na iti, na iti. He is neither big nor small, neither white nor black, neither light nor heavy, neither whatever, neither this nor that, neither hot nor cold. So, if you can exhaust all possible categories in the world, then you will arrive at God. Because God is indefinable. So, again, because once you define anything, you limit it. Defining God would amount to limiting God. Since you cannot limit God, you cannot define God. Therefore, these theories are all just theories. They cannot be the truth. The truth is always beyond these limited theories. See, some people are obsessed with Advaita, some with Vishishtadvaita, some with Dvaita, with all due respects to all of them. My position is, now Chaitanya says, Achintya Bheda Bheda. Achintya Bheda Bheda sounds a little better to me, because sun and sunlight, are they different? Yes, they are. No, they are not. Okay. The sun reflected in a pool of water, in a muddy pool, or in pure water, or in Ganga, it's the same thing. Is the sun reflected different from the sun? Well, yes and no. Okay. Now let us get back to Swami Mukundananda. He quotes from Purusha Suktam. Purusha ye vedam sarvam yadbhutam yaccha bhavyam. God is everywhere in the world. Rigvedam. Purusha Suktam, I think, occurs in the Rigveda, and it occurs elsewhere also. Purusha ye vedam sarvam yadbhuta yaccha bhavyam. God pervades everything that has existed and all that will exist. Parinamavada, transformation. Milk is an unadulterated substance. In contact with acid, it transforms to yogurt. Thus, yogurt is a parinama. Parinama means effect or product of milk when it is transformed. Some people, some protagonists of the Parinamavada state that God has transformed into the world. Okay. Now you see the counter for this is, okay, we'll come to that later. Okay. Then other philosophers claim that the world is vivarta. That means you are mistaking one object for the another. In the darkness, a rope may be mistaken for a snake. In the moonlight, a shining oyster may be mistaken for silver. Similarly, they say that there is only God and nothing else, no world, and what we are seeing as the world is actually Brahman. But according to Bhagavad Gita 7.4 and 7.5, the world is neither Parinama nor Vivarta. It is created from the material energy of Sri Krishna called Maya Shakti. The souls too are the energy of Krishna, but they are his superior energy called Jiva Shakti. Therefore, the world and all the souls in it are both God's energies and are within his personality. However, Sri Krishna also says that he does not dwell in living beings. The infinite cannot be contained by finite beings. The infinite cannot be contained by the finite. Don't forget that. That is because he is far more than the sum total of all these two energies. Just as waves are part of the ocean. Waves are part of the ocean, but the ocean is greater than the sum total of the waves. Isn't it? Similarly, too, the souls and Maya exist within the personality of Krishna, yet he is beyond them. Now, I do not know to what extent your doubts have been clarified. I am again stating the same thing. Reconciliation is not possible. I have arrived at the conclusion that some things will not be known. They are the known unknowns. Known unknowns. And there are unknown unknowns also. You don't even know what you don't know. You know some things. They are known knowns, the known knowns and known unknowns. Unknown knowns and unknown unknowns. So examine all those categories. Now, so my counter to Advaita, when they say nothing exists, it's all hologram and holographic and all that, fine. There is a big stone here. The stone exists, and if I hit my head with that stone, I will bleed. So you cannot say the stone doesn't exist. The stone, damn it, exists. How can you deny reality? Madhvacharya, that is why he says don't deny reality. The world is real. Only thing is, it is fugitive. It is evanescent, ephemeral, fugacious. It's fleeting, transient, ashwatha, temporary. Will change. Nothing is permanent. So say things are not permanent, and because anything that is not permanent is asatya. Satya means something that is permanent. The world exists. You cannot deny the reality of the world. But it is not satya. It is asatya. So these are nuances again in philosophy. So every philosopher is fond of coming up with their own theology, their own terminology. And in the next shloka, nacha matsthani bhutani pashyame yogamaishwaram bhuta brunnacha bhutasto mamatma bhuta bhavana. Mukundananda, his explanation is, and yet the living beings do not abide in me. Behold the mystery of my divine energy. Although I am the creator and sustainer of all living beings, I am not influenced by them or by material nature. Now, beyond the two energies mentioned in the purport of the previous verse, Maya Shakti and Jiva Shakti, there is a third energy of Krishna. That's called Yoga Maya Shakti. Oh my God. Now, more terminology is getting thrown into the pot. It is already becoming queer and queerer. It is becoming a hodgepodge. So, no offense intended, but this is called Yoga Maya Shakti, which he refers to in this verse as divine energy. Yoga Maya is Krishna's all-powerful energy. It is Kartum Akartarum, Kartum Akartum Samarthaha, that which can make the impossible possible. And it is responsible for many of the amazing things we attribute to his personality. God is seated in our hearts, yet we have no perception of him. This is because of his Yogamaya power, which keeps us aloof from him. So, this is his explanation. So, Vedas call God Dashanguli. Dashanguli means or 10 fingers. That means he is in the world and yet 10 fingers beyond it. Dashanguli means he is in the world and yet he is 10 fingers beyond it. That means he is untouched by it. Like the clouds which lie in the sky. The clouds are there, but when they disperse or when they exist, they don't tarnish or taint the sky. The sky is not affected. That's why Krishna says, Yadha akasha sthito nityam vayu sarvatra go mahan tadha sarvani bhutani matsthani tyupadharaya. Know that as the mighty wind blowing everywhere always rests in the sky, likewise all beings always rest in me. Oh my God. Sarva bhutani kaunteya prakritim yanti mamikam kalpakshaye punastani kalpadau visrujamyam prakritim swam avashtabhya visrujami punah punah bhutagrama mimam krutshnam avasham prakrutir vashat. Okay, now let's go back to our discussion. Swami Jayadayal Goyandka gives a very interesting explanation. Just as all living beings and objects seen in a dream, being in the dreamer, the latter is not wholly limited by the objects of his dream, but exists beyond them as well. Even so, Krishna, though permeating the whole universe, is not limited by it, inasmuch as the latter exists in a fraction of his being. Thus, being greater than the world and its substratum, he is not in the world alone. A dreamer, though directly perceiving all the objects of dream in the course of his dream, has really no connection whatsoever with such objects or with the acts of his dream, and remains wholly beyond and unconnected with the dream world. He existed before the dream, exists even while dreaming, and will exist after waking from the dream. So also Krishna ever exists and does not cease even when the whole world ceases to exist. On the other hand, he shines in his own glory even when there is no trace of the world. Thus, being altogether beyond the world and unattached to it, he is not in the world. So, we are discussing about how to reconcile seeming contradictions, or should we say clear contradictions. My answer is you cannot reconcile, because the greatest minds the world has ever seen have not even scratched the surface. We don't know 1/1,000,000th of 1% of anything. That's what Thomas Alva Edison said. Quantum mechanics and classical physics are incompatible, yet we accept both of them. And Albert Einstein spent the last 10 years of his life trying to come up with a theory that explains everything, but unfortunately he failed. He is credited as a man who understood God's mind. Well, I do not know, that is a hyperbolic. Nevertheless, so the truth is so paradoxical that perhaps we will never ever have a complete understanding. Yes, we have understood some things. The known knowns are there, the known unknowns are there, the unknown knowns are there, and the unknown unknowns are also there. Now, ask yourself, if an unstoppable force collides with an immovable object, unstoppable force meets with an immovable object, what will happen? Keep thinking. Honestly, let me allay your pain, let me mitigate your pain, alleviate your suffering, that there is no answer to this question. You cannot answer this question, because anything you say will only expose your lack of capacity for thinking. If it's an unstoppable force, then nothing can stop it. And if it's an immovable object, then if it is hit by an unstoppable force also, it should not move. In which case, if it does not move, then it remains immovable, but the unstoppable force will get stopped. So therefore, that will not be an unstoppable force. So how do you resolve this paradox? You have absolutely no resolution for this. So similarly, okay, now let us look at all these seemingly contradictory ones. And you see, Jayadayal Goyandka ji says very simply, you see, Krishna cannot exist within anything, because if he does exist within anything, then these things which are perishable, they will perish. So if Krishna exists within them, he should also perish when they perish. And if they exist in him, if everything exists in God, in Krishna, then Krishna is immortal. So because he is immortal, anything that exists within him should also be immortal, but they are not. Therefore, again, they cannot be within. But we have comfortably accepted that God is immanent and transcendent, within everything, beyond everything. And the double slit experiment gives some evidence that consciousness seems to be the ultimate reality. Now you have so many contradictory evidences and so many theories. So it is a virtual smorgasbord. And then you have this chaos theory, butterfly effect, superstring theory. The superstring theory is so elegant theoretically, but it cannot be proved in a laboratory. That is why Veda repeatedly says, Yato vacho nivartante aprapya manasa saha. The infinite cannot be contained in the finite. How can the infinite be contained in a mere idol? But well, the idol is not idol. Actually, we are using that idol to remind us of God. So some idiots think that their duty is to break all idols, but they have their own idols. The word idol basically means anything that you hold in respect. They have their holy books, which these books are made from paper. The paper comes from trees. So actually they are worshipping a tree now in a modified form. And then they are telling us that you are idol worshippers. You bloody fool, you have your own idol. And by the way, we don't worship the idol. Just as you wear a watch in order to know time, the idol is there to remind us of God. So that is why Krishna gives support for that also in the 12th chapter, 5th slokam. क्लेशोदिक तरस्तेषाम अव्यक्ता सक्तचेतसाम अव्यक्ता hi gatir dukkham dehavadbhiravaप्यते. Krishna clearly supports that worshipping the unmanifested is so very difficult. Therefore, you are perfectly entitled to have an Ishta Devata and a Murti, an idol, an image if you want. Yeah, perfect. Go ahead and do it. What's wrong? As long as you are not killing somebody, as long as you are not committing any crime or harming anybody, you are entitled to your belief. Only when your belief is a dangerous belief, if your holy book is teaching you lechery, butchery, treachery, bigotry and absurdity, and if your holy book is telling you that you have a holy duty to proselytize all the infidels or subject them to an inquisition, or finally if they are not relenting and if they are not willing to get proselytized, it is your holy duty to kill them in order to gain some permanent heaven. The whole concept is ridiculously immature. Permanent heaven is itself and a permanent hell for the unbeliever. Belief in such a thing is a serious moral defect. How can there be an eternal hell? Simply because somebody does not accept your God, how can you consign him? Ask them, where would they send Vivekananda? Where would they send so many sons? Tulsidas, for example. So many sons we have. Ramakrishna Paramahamsa. Where do you think they will all go? Simply because they did not accept your God? You want to send them to eternal hell? What kind of nonsense is this? And a holy book that teaches lechery, butchery, treachery, bigotry, intolerance, bigotry is intolerance, and absurdity will produce extremists and terrorists of all kind. Enough proof is available for the last 2000 years. What more do you want? So let us look at these. So I am just reading out the shlokas because these are the shlokas which are constantly thrown at me. I have had these situations where people have asked me, how do you reconcile? My answer is, I cannot reconcile, we will not reconcile, because you are not entitled to know everything. Even the greatest scientists will tell you, yes, what we know is nothing compared to what we don't know. And 9.5, you see, Krishna is saying what? I think I read that. Nacha matsthani bhutani pashyave yoga vaishwaram bhuta bhrunnacha bhutasto mamatma bhuta bhavana. And yet everything that is created does not rest in me. Yes, everything that is created does not rest in me. All beings are in me, but I am not in them. And immediately he says, and yet everything that is created does not rest in me. Just like clouds that are there in the sky, just like dreams that a dreamer dreams. Behold my mystic opulence. Although I am the maintainer of all living entities and although I am everywhere, I am not a part of this cosmic manifestation, because myself is the very source of creation. Then what next? 10:20. Aham atma gudakesha sarvabhuta shayastitha aham aditya madhyamcha bhutanam antayevacha. I am there in everyone. Now 10:39. Yachapi sarvabhutanam bijam tadaham arjuna natadasti vina yasyam maya bhutam characharam. And then 13:13. Sarvatah panipadantat sarvatah shishiro mukham sarvatah shrutimal loke sarvam avrutya tishtati. Sarvam avrutya tishtati. Amababai. Next, 1861. Ishvara sarvabhutanam hrideshirjuna tishtati brahmayan sarvabhutani yantrarudhani mayaya. If you look at all these shlokas, I gave you the list: 9.4, 9.5, 10:20, 10:39, 13:13, 1861 and many more exist. I have given you what all discussions, what all notes that I jotted down on this paper, because my position is simple. I surrender. Prapanna. Total surrender. Once you surrender and admit, Aya, I don't know, please save me. Bhakti. Bhakti which is founded on knowledge, that knows that it is not entitled to know everything. Jai Shri Ram.